And one more report on Treblinka from Henry Gold. And the worst thing that happens to a person in that instance, he loses self-respect, and that's exactly what happened to the majority of the people. Some of them even lost their minds. They couldn't take it. They couldn't take the hunger, they couldn't take the beatings, they couldn't take the cold, no clothing, and the uncertainty. And the uncertainty, I think that was the worst thing that can happen to a person. You didn't know from one moment to the next what was going to happen. Life was very cheap. A person was alive 1 minute, the next minute he was shot, killed, beaten up, beaten to death, torn apart by dogs, and so on. Life was very, very cheap, and that's the way the Germans liked it. That particular camp was governed by the Jewish police and so on. The Germans did not stay in the camp. They were on the outside. But the life inside of the camp was just as bad without the Germans being right there than if they would be. The Jewish police was, I don't know. You take a person in that situation and you give them a little power and he becomes the same as the oppressor himself. There were some policemen that were not bad, but there were a lot of them that were ruthless. There were others that would beat people and do all kinds of things that would degrade them and so on, especially women. They cut their hair off and they looked like men. They looked like scarecrows. And they would get beaten up by the Jewish police just as bad as the man for no reason at all. If they wanted a little more soup, where they were distributing soup and there was some left and they were going to give everybody a little bit, and the Jewish police with their sticks and rubber hoses would beat them half senseless. And that's what happens when the conditions are the way they were then. When a person becomes an animal and loses self-respect, that is willing to get a beating and get beaten half senseless just to get a little bit of soup. Either you died, or if you didn't die, the Germans would come and take you away. The filth was just terrible in the camp. In the barracks, you had cots. I mean bunks where everybody slept on straw. There were no covers, was no pillows, nothing. You slept in your clothes in the winter because you're afraid to get cold. The only heating was a pot-bellied stove in the middle of the barrack. When somebody stole some wood in the factory or something, then we had a fire, otherwise it was freezing. And the only warmth they had if you huddled together, and they kept warm that way. But nobody would get undressed. The lice were eating you up alive. Once a month you were allowed to take a shower, and we had to walk to Camp A to go to the showers, and that means a 10-mile walk. 10 miles there and 10 miles back. A lot of people were too weak to walk, and those people hardly ever took a shower. There was no hot water in the washroom. It was only cold, and in the winter you were afraid to wash up because there was nothing to wipe yourself with. Therefore, you would walk out in the cold winter and freeze to death. And Henry Gold, brothers, and both of his parents were all killed in the gas chambers.